on the line to talk about this trade and a whole bunch more. It's Jeff Rieger, Mr. Do-It-All with 97.1 The Ticket. You can hear him during the intermissions with Red Wings games. Jeff, I know you're already tweeting out a whole bunch of stuff with this Erik Cole trade. Just what were your thoughts on it initially?
What's going on, guys? Yeah, I think it's a great trade, to tell you the truth. Well, I got a couple thoughts, I guess. Number one, we have no idea about the health of Johan Franzen, who's been out forever with a concussion. Darren Helm just got injured yesterday. So I think Ken Holland, I don't want to say panicked by any mean, but I think he's like, okay, well, if Helm's not ready to go in the foreseeable future, and we have no idea when Franzen's coming back, then, yeah, you need to get a little edge here. You need a big forward that could stir it up a little bit. That's Erik Cole, and he adds offense to the game as well. So I like the deal. I'm not saying the two prospects that are now playing in Sweden aren't going to be NHL players. I know one of the guys was playing, that Backstrom kid was playing in Grand Rapids, and he got sick of being a healthy scratch. So he went back to Sweden, kind of like that Cale Yarncroc last year who was traded for David Legwand. Mm-hmm. There was always that belief if he wasn't going to crack that Wings lineup, then he was going to go back himself. And obviously he's in Nashville because he got traded. But I think these kids, they're so low on the prospect radar that you're probably not going to regret trading them. Not to mention Erik Cole can help you win now. Now, I know Ken Holland didn't want to get a rental player. That's exactly what Erik Cole is. But he's 36 years old. I don't know how much longer he wants to play. But you got to think, if he likes it here, we'll see what happens. Maybe you can sign him for another year.
You called him the Dallas Drake, potentially, of this Cup run with scoring. So there's a bonus for it. Is he that impactful, you think, in this Cup run?
Well, you know what? I mean, I like veterans. I really do. I know Ken Holland likes veterans, too. Now, when I called him the Dallas Drake, I think Dallas Drake was so instrumental to that team. Played in the third line, threw his body around, and he was the first guy that Nick Lidstrom handed the Cup to when they won in 2008 in Pittsburgh in that Game 6. So I think he was very instrumental back then. And, yeah, listen, I don't know if Erik Cole is going to go out every shift and, bust his butt like Dallas Drake did. What I do know is this is a guy that has already won a Stanley Cup, actually lost to the Wings in 2002 in the Stanley Cup Finals as well, and he's played in 46, I think, postseason games. His career, obviously, is coming to an end, and I like that veteran that is hungry, that obviously last year of his contract, let's not forget that. I don't think he wants to retire. So you add it all together and you say, okay, a vet, what you need in the postseason, no matter how his postseason numbers are. And this is a guy that wants to play next year and hopefully has a lot to give. I mean, I can't forget last year when the Wings took on the Bruins. And as good as Tatar and Nyquist and Sheahan were in the regular season, if it wasn't for them, you don't make the playoffs. Those guys were not as good in the postseason. Now, in year two, will they be as good? We're going to have to wait and see, but I trust a veteran. That's why I love this move. Even if Helm is healthy, even if Franzen is still around, I still like the move, and then you just figure out, okay, Yurko maybe goes away or Teemu Pulkkinen goes down. Whatever the case is, whatever they decide to do, I don't think you go around bringing in a veteran to help this team. And also, let's not forget, guys, that people always say the Wings can make a deep postseason run, and without a doubt they can. They're a very talented team. Look what they just did on this road trip, and they just beat the best in all the game yesterday in Nashville. With that being said, though, they're pretty much locked in. They're going to play Tampa Bay or they're going to play Montreal. They're 0-5 against those teams this season. So I don't think it's a given they get past the first round. That's why all the help helps, and Zetterberg and that Zucker not getting any younger. I like it for so many different reasons.
Another question we kind of had that we posed in the last segment, we were talking about it, Jeff, and this team seems to have a surplus of young talent on it, and a lot of the guys still with Grand Rapids, but we've seen a lot of them up with the big club as well, Teemu Pulkkinen, Marchenko, and Ouellette. Is there a surplus of talent where you can afford to go out and maybe trade some of that young talent now to get better in the current state of the team?
Well, that's a big question. It seems like Ken Holland doesn't want to do that. He said several times that he doesn't want to trade the prospects unless it makes them significantly better. Like, I think Erik Cole makes them significantly better, and he was able to not trade one of the big-name prospects that all the fans know about. So that's obviously a win-win. I think they do have a ton of talent, though. I mean, you look at the guys that are young that are up with the team right now, and then people wonder about, like, Mansa or Callahan. I mean, the list goes on and on. Teemu Pulkkinen, who tore it up in the AHL, and as you mentioned, is with the team right now, just got his first NHL goal the other day. So I think they do have an abundance of talent, but I also think that Ken Holland believes that this team is good enough right now and he doesn't want to give up that talent or a first or second round pick, which could turn more into that talent, when you figure maybe down the line you're going to come across a bigger need. See, that's the thing. Like, if that right-handed shot was out there, like I think Cody Franzen personally was that guy, okay? And I don't know what the price was, and I'm sure Ken Holland inquired. But if you believe this is a guy that could play top two-pair defenseman, right-handed shot, and it's going to cost you, let's say, a Mitch Callahan or a Teemu Pulkkinen, and they believed he was the piece to win a Stanley Cup, I think he would have done it. But I think it's almost like, okay, you need another defenseman for sure, but you probably could win without another defenseman. So with that being said, do you really want to give up these pieces, knowing that down the line you could probably give up these pieces? You can also get better in the offseason as well. If you think you're good enough right now, and you think that any D-man out there, and Jeff Petrie could be one of those guys that would only be a marginal upgrade, why would you deal one of your top prospects when you can wait down the line? Either they end up playing for you in the big club, or you can trade them for a much bigger piece down the road.
Jeff, you already referenced Red Wings, Tigers. Do you find it odd that if we have these Tigers conversations every year at the deadline and you say, mortgage the future to win now, and this Red Wings team has a chance? You look at Datsuk, Zetterberg,
you're right.
Yeah, Kronwall. I mean, what is their future like? Is it really? I mean, they could fall off any year now. If this is a Tigers conversation, you're saying, I don't care, Mantha, Larkin, nobody's untouchable. We're winning the Cup this year. Is it odd to you at all that we think so differently of these two franchises? Maybe it speaks more to the Red Wings. They've been so good and they've been so stable and they win anyway.
I was thinking of that today, actually, and I think the biggest thing there is that Tigers window is closing.
Yeah.
They traded all their prospects, and it's almost a matter of, holy crap, is it going to happen this year? Is this the first year they're not going to win the Central? And you look at the bad contracts and you say to yourself, okay, as whatever we got to do to keep this train moving for another year, we'll do. So if that means one of the hottest hitting prospects, whatever. Not to mention, Dave Dombrowski has some street cred in that category because the big-time prospects that he traded away have not really panned out. Now, Doug Fister was our prospect, and that was an ugly, awful trade, and fans will never forget that. But as far as, like, prospects, he's been pretty good, for the most part, in drafting. Not drafting, but making trades. He hasn't been very good at drafting. As far as the Wings and what they're concerned, you're right. Datsuk and Zetterberg, Ken Holland's a big believer of the guys that are playing for him. He wants to give them the best chance. He even said that the other day. And I know for a fact, and he might tell you differently, but I'm pretty sure I know for a fact that the reason he made that Cale Yarncroc deal for David Legwand last year was because Daniel Alfredsson was on the team. And he left Ottawa to come to Detroit to win a Stanley Cup. And you know what? Daniel Alfredsson, if he would have won a cup, cool. But you know what? Daniel Alfredsson isn't going to go tell the rest of his NHL buddies or anybody else that's pending free agents that Detroit was out of centers and that Ken Holland didn't make a move. He made a move for him. He made a move for perception. They made a bad move. Legwand's not there, and Cale Yarncroc's playing all right in Nashville. But you do what you got to do. This year, they're healthy. They're a good hockey team. And like I said, I don't think there's that bang, surefire guy that's going to make you get to the Stanley Cup Finals out there. If there was, I think they'd trade for him, and I think they'd be willing to risk those prospects. But I think that's the big difference, Like, you're right about that, too, with Zetterberg, and they're not getting any younger. But I think the Tigers are in such dire need to win right this moment in 2015. While the Wings, those guys aren't getting younger, but they have such good talent coming up that they look like they're stocked for years to come.
Jeff, you brought up the Doug Fister trade. We don't want to go back on that again, so a little disappointing.
That there too. Isn't that fun?
One last final question for you, though. Obviously, with the Eric Cole addition now, there's that little stipulation that Dallas gets that third-round pick back if you make the conference finals, if the Red Wings do that. Is this a team that you potentially see making the conference finals, kind of an overlooking outlook moving forward for this team?
That's a great question. And I'm telling you, the thing I worry about the most is that first-round matchup. I think Tampa Bay and Montreal are very good teams. They're above Detroit in the standings.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned, they're 5-0 against Detroit. And they play Tampa Bay one more time, I believe, at the Joe later on this month. But I think if you make it past that first round, as crazy as it sounds, then I think they can get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then you look in the other division, like the Islanders. The Islanders are a good team. And they're in first place in that Metro Division and have been all season long. But you know what the Islanders are? They're a team that's never been there before. So you wonder, okay, They're having a great regular season, but now the big lights come on. Are they going to be as good? Pittsburgh continues to be a choke artist in the postseason. Washington's playing very well right now. They continue to. Has Alex Ovechkin even won a first round? I mean, you go on and on and on. Is Boston even going to make the playoffs? And if they do, they're probably going to get knocked out by Montreal in the first round. And, I know that Florida seems like they're going for it because they just got Yager and they just made a deal yesterday. I'm drawing a blank on his name. So they might be in the postseason, but it's kind of the same. They haven't been there. So, yeah, I think if they find a way to get past their first-round opponent, I think there's a great chance they could represent the Eastern Conference and take on whoever's in the West, L.A. or whoever.